Okay, we're doing the book here, Prevent and Reverse Hypertension by me, Pete Rogers. We're on figure 215. And this is showing the anatomy of the endothelium. This is the lining of your arteries. So these cells are called endothelial cells, and this is their plasma membrane, the outer membrane that encloses the cell. The coating around the cell is called the glycocalyx. Glyco means sugar, calyx means coating, so sugar coating. And it's called that because part of one of the components of the outer surface of the cell is what's called a repeating disaccharides, units of sugars. And a typical one is heparan sulfate. What it's all about is generating a negative charge. The negative charge on the outer surface of a cell is called a zeta potential. Everything to do with blood, the important stuff, will have a zeta potential. The red blood cells have a zeta potential. The white blood cells have a zeta potential. The arterial lining cells, the endothelium, has a zeta potential. And when everything is negative charge, they all repel each other, which is what you want, so they don't stick together. These sulfates got a double negative charge. And that's great for another reason. It attracts water to it. Water forms a dipole, meaning a partial charge distribution where there's a slight positive charge on the hydrogen. Those are attracted to the sulfates of the heparan sulfate. And that, you know, the expression slippery when wet. So that makes the wall of the artery very slippery, helps the red blood cells to slide through as they pass through. Over 99% of the cells in the blood are red blood cells. There's very few, in comparison, white blood cells. Okay. The way the anatomy of the glycocalyx is that you have the plasma membrane, that's a phospholipid bilayer, and that's only about, but the number I use to remember all this is 666. So it's kind of a bad number, but it works for remembering this. 666. So 6 microns is the thickness of the plasma membrane, approximately. Okay? The next thing is there's going to be little proteins sticking up from there called adhesion proteins. Like a typical example would be something like VCAM, vascular cell adhesion molecule. Those are approximately 60 microns in height, okay? Or 60 nanometers, 60 nanometers in height. And then these big core proteins with the glycosaminoglycans coming off of them at multiple levels, those are about 600 nanometers in height. So the glycocalyx sticks way, way, way above the plasma membrane, and that's important. So the anti-sticky surface sticks way up, and that's the normal thing that red blood cells are exposed to. You can think of these glycosaminoglycans and heparan sulfates as being like trees on top of a hill. All right, that's the surface. Like if you were a red blood cell is like a helicopter flying over the glycocalyx, and it sees these treetops, and they're very, very slippery. This is the core protein to which the glycosaminoglycans, the repeating disaccharides of heparan sulfate, are attached to. At the ends of these glycosaminoglycans, you have the sialic acids. The sialic acids are like the identification card of the cell to say, yes, we are part of self. We belong here. Those also have a negative charge on them. So there's a lot of negative charges in here. You got all the sulfates on the glycosaminoglycans, you got the sialic acids at the end of them, and you'll have cholesterol sulfates in here, you'll have cholesterol sulfates in the plasma membrane. So what happens though is when you have abnormal flow, lots of severe hypertension with a lot of chaotic turbulent flow and also retrograde eddy currents at bifurcation, that will confuse the endothelial cell. It thinks that there's been a vascular injury. It will shed its antithrombotic glycocalyx. It'll shed these glycosaminoglycans. You'll even have MMPs, matrix metalloproteinases, cut these core proteins so they're shed off into the blood. And then the vascular cell adhesion molecules will be exposed with their 16 nanometer height, and red blood cells and white blood cells will stick to them and form blood clots. That's how atherosclerosis begins. So that's why this is worth knowing. You need to know the idea of the zeta potential, and that's a really easy way to remember. 666, 6 nanometers for the plasma membrane, 60 nanometers, about this height, is going to be the adhesive molecules, and then 600 nanometers for the slippery surface of the glycocalyx itself with these repeating heparan sulfates. Okay. That's an important thing to know about vascular anatomy. I just wanted to show you like the cartilage in a knee joint. It's rather similar. So here's some cartilage in the knee joint and other joints. It's also going to have these repeating glycosaminoglycans because a lot of water will stick to them. So that gives them like a buoyancy. They're like a shock absorber. So when the foot strikes the ground when you're walking, they absorb some of the shock, and the water bounces out of them when it feels maximum weight upon itself, and then the water comes right back to it. So it's very capable of repetitive use. You can run a marathon on this cartilage, and that's what it is. Same thing of a core protein, this time attached to a hyaluronic acid, and then you got the repeating disaccharides, in this case chondroitin sulfate instead of heparin sulfate, still very negatively charged, and the water bounces on and off of it as the leg impacts, with the foot strike. Okay, so that's how joints cushion themselves, have a shock absorber. Okay, so that's it for part 15 of hypertension. I hope you found that helpful.